All right, welcome back to Right on the Edge. My name's Derek, and I'm gonna watch this video today. This is like a learning video. What happened to the Nautilus? Now, obviously, I'm missing some history here. I am definitely missing history here because I thought this was a book and just a book, but I guess I guess maybe the book was based on, or the name of the book was based on a real thing, maybe. Or the real thing was based on the book. I'm not sure, but I'm gonna read it. Or not read it. I'm gonna watch this.
In August 1931, a submarine approaches the edge of the known world. It's about to enter a massive frozen unknown, a part of the world that remains largely unexplored.
So it just goes under the ice sheath and what disappears, or that's cool, brave, stupid, but cool.
On board are a group of daring explorers determined to uncover the Arctic's great mysteries, setting out to not only reach the top of the world, but to discover what lies hidden beneath it in a new kind of exploration machine, enduring cramped conditions and frigid temperatures.
I don't think I could do it, to be honest with you. Not because of the danger of the situation. I think that would attract me to it, but being in a little tube under the ocean gives me a little panic attack just thinking about it.
They'll push ahead for thousands of kilometers under the ice. But as days turn to weeks, the expedition will go horribly wrong.
I suspected that.
For centuries, explorers tried repeatedly to reach the top of the world. At first, they used ships battling frigid temperatures and treacherous sea ice. Their vessels often became trapped, stranding crews with little hope of rescue. Later, explorers tried with dog sleds or even on foot, often ending tragically. Over the centuries, hundreds of explorers perished. So,
I mean, yeah, I kind of knew this. I knew there had been a lot of attempts to make it to the center and everything, and a lot of failures, but I never knew about this submarine.
challenging was the Arctic that the first undisputed discovery of the North Pole wasn't until 1926, and it was only from the air in a modified airship that never even touched the ground. So when
They did it in a blimp. Those things are more durable than I thought they were.
accomplished explorer Sir Hubert Wilkins planned to set foot on the North Pole, he was convinced there was a better way to do it. The North Pole doesn't lie on a continental landmass like the South Pole. Instead, it's located in the middle of the Arctic Ocean, amid waters almost always covered in ice. Wilkins was convinced that a submarine would be the ultimate way to reach the North Pole, and fitted with the latest scientific equipment, it could help solve the Arctic's great mysteries.
That's awesome. I'm not even gonna lie to you, that's fucking cool as hell.
Wilkins would set off in the summer, first sailing across the Atlantic, then all the way up to the Arctic Circle. From there, his expedition would head west, spanning over 3,000 kilometers. Over 6 weeks, he'd zigzag underneath the ice, emerging from the deep through any openings, before finally ending in Alaska. To fund the expedition,
Oh, excuse me again. I have allergies, so and they're kicking my ass today. But God, that was a full ass expedition.
Wilkins put up his own savings and raised money from wherever he could. He lectured day and night, and even wrote a book outlining his ambitious plans. But it still wasn't enough. He'd need
I wonder if you can still find copies of it. Well, obviously you probably can't, but I would like to read what his actual thoughts were on the matter.
serious backing. And one sure way to get it was to turn his scientific pursuit into a media sensation. A voyage under the ice was the kind of thing that would sell out newspapers. So Wilkins made a deal with newspaper magnate William Randolph Hearst, a man with a flair for sensationalism. Hearst would get exclusive publishing rights, and Wilkins would get his funding. And to create even more buzz, Hearst orchestrated for Wilkins to meet up at the pole with a second expedition. The mass
I mean, that's smart. That's smart. Secure funding with publicity and like uh like sensationalism. It makes sense. There isn't a lot of people that do this type of stuff anymore, or when they do, they are like they're just scientists or something. It's not there's not these men out here that are just doing crazy shit all the time. You know, I take that back. There probably is. I just don't know of them. Leave comments. let me know. You know what I mean? Let me know.
of airship Graf Zeppelin would fly overhead just as Wilkins emerged from the ice, captivating the public with headlines of the pole being conquered from above and below. If he could pull off the stunt, Hearst offered Wilkins a $150,000 prize. All that was left was to find a submarine.
Damn, dude. Back when this was done, that was big money, man. $150,000. That's crazy.
Wilkins planned to reach the North Pole in the Nautilus, a retired World War I era tech sub that had been heavily modified by renowned naval architect Simon Lake. And it would have to do what no submarine had ever done before. The voyage would be fraught with danger, including the risk of a collision with the sea ice. So Lake reinforced the Nautilus's bow with heavy steel plates and concrete and added a hydraulic impact absorber to soften the blow. But the ice above could also prove deadly, so Lake fitted the topside with sledge runners, which would allow it to slide along the bottom of the ice, much like a toboggan.
Damn. Yeah, that's really smart. I don't know how well the front of that being reinforced is gonna help it, because I imagine just the sides are probably the problem. But maybe they put the slides on the side too. That would be fucking cool. Oh man, I just can't believe we had this sort of tech back then. It's like it blows my mind sometimes when I'm thinking about how close the tech was, or how advanced tech was at certain time periods.
A hydraulic retractable guide arm would also keep a safe distance from the hazards above. The Nautilus could be confined under the ice for days at a time, but it would eventually need to surface to take on air and recharge its batteries. A lack of openings in the ice could doom the crew. So Lake innovated a series of drills capable of boring through the ice, allowing the Nautilus's crew to drill through up to 20 feet to reach the
God, man, these people are fucking smart.
Surface. In place of the original torpedo tubes, Lake added a pressurized diving chamber where the crew could lower instruments to the ocean floor or conduct dives. In all, Simon Lake made dozens of modifications. Originally built for World War I, the Nautilus would now have to battle Mother Nature. On March 16, 1931, as the expedition
Dude, this is hard work, man. But look at that. Yeah, I love the fact that this was around when the cameras were around. They're resurfacing it, tuning it up, cleaning it off. This is crazy. And then look at that boat, man. Yeah, it's like a Steamboat Willie type boat here in the background. That's so cool.
Prepared to set off, Wilkins put on a brave face for reporters.
We're merely just carrying things on board now for the final inspection before leaving the dockyard. We expect in about 6 or 8 months to have made the trip 2,000 miles under the ice, starting from Spitzbergen somewhere about the 1st of July.
But deep.
Bro, everybody talked like that during the time, man. America really had this, like, accent during this time period still. And that accent's definitely faded over the years, with the closest, I believe, being like the southern dialect of accents.
Down, Wilkins was worried. He feared many of the sub's novel features were unnecessary, even dangerous. He had reservations about the sledge runners, the ice drills, and the shock absorber, which he worried would actually lodge itself into the ice, trapping the Nautilus beneath the surface. Wilkins insisted on installing a photosensitive electrical cell to measure the thickness of the ice above so he'd know where to surface.
I can't believe I keep saying it, but the amount of technology they had that I was unaware of for this time period is insane. Like a photo thing to see how thick the ice was. I guess it measures the amount of like light that gets through. That's that's hold on, what do they call that thing? I'm gonna look it up real fast. I have to know.
Sensitive electric.
Photoelectric cell. Uh, all right, little tangent here.
Photoelectric cell. A photocell is a technological application of the photoelectric effect. It is a device whose electrical properties are affected by light. It is also sometimes called an electric eye. A photocell consists of a semi-cylindrical photosensitive metal plate, C, emitter, and a wire loop, A, collector, supported in an evacuated glass or quartz bulb. It is connected to the external circuit, having a high-tension battery B and
Okay.
microammeter. Sometimes, instead of the plate C, a thin layer of photosensitive material is pasted on the inside of the bulb. In for the light, the emitter C, photoelectrons are emitted. These photoelectrons are drawn to the collector A. Photocurrent of the order of a few microampere can be normally obtained from a photocell. A photocell.
Okay. All right. So it probably measures the depth by the amount of those electrons that are that is able to receive. That's
Electrical cell to measure the thickness of
cool.
the ice above, so he'd know where to surface. But Simon Lake denied the request. Navy, and he had the final word. Denied the request.
wow.
The Nautilus was Lake's submarine. He's the one who leased it from the US Navy, and he had the final word on any modifications. Wilkins merely subchartered it for the expedition. There was little he could do but
Even back then, man, people are being screwed over by subcontractors.
accept the submarine as it was. But the Wonder Gadgets would cause headaches before the expedition even began, repeatedly forcing the sub back into port for repairs. It was one thing to invent novel features, trying to retrofit them onto a tired old sub created all kinds of issues. Confirming Wilkins's worst fears, the ice drills didn't even work during testing, and a separate engineering firm was called in to try to figure it all out. The weeks turned into months, and Wilkins was beginning to feel the pressure. If the Nautilus was to meet the Graf Zeppelin at the North Pole, time was of the essence. Otherwise,
I kind of wish we still had papers like this. Like, look at that. That's like a hand-drawn, like, little infographic. Like, even if the country's shapes are wrong and everything. I just like that style of art. I'm not gonna lie to you. I would probably pay for papers if it still had stuff like this on it.
Wilkins would lose out on Hearst's prize money. By June, Wilkins had had enough. Mechanical issues be damned, it was time to get going. The journey across
The dude was like, fuck it, bro. We're going. We are going.
the Atlantic was grueling. The tiny sub was easily tossed around by fierce North Atlantic storms. The crew were also beginning to learn just how uncomfortable the Nautilus was. The submarine was cramped and claustrophobic to begin with. Now loaded up for the expedition, there was even less space. For 20 men, there was just a single toilet out in the open between two roaring
Bro, it's like they were in jail in here. Jesus Christ.
diesel engines. The crew would have to spend their entire day standing because there wasn't anywhere to sit. Only a handful of bunks shared amongst the men provided any relief.
So they were going crazy. They were going crazy in here. That's what was happening.
Wilkins sent Hearst daily radio updates documenting the harrowing journey.
This morning, an extra heavy wave swept the decks and carried away the screen before the bridge.
Nearly everyone aboard was seasick, and when the Nautilus's bilge pump failed, sewage, oil, and vomit began to swill around the crew's feet. But as the tiny sub battled the fierce Atlantic, things
These are some of the worst conditions I've ever heard of. Obviously, I haven't heard of a lot. I'm sure there's worse, but Jesus Christ.
only got worse.
The fourth cylinder of our starboard engine is badly cracked.
Forced to shut down one of its two engines, the Nautilus could only limp forward. On June 13th, a week into the journey, the Nautilus stopped sending radio updates, and for several days, no one.
So the radio broke down, the engine's done, these people are half like in their own shit. It's cramped. They're going like they're having cabin fever stuff going on. These are intense conditions to be in.
Had any idea about the fate of the sub and its crew. On June 15th, the battleship Wyoming found the Nautilus drifting aimlessly about 1,000 kilometers northeast of the Azores. Both engines had failed, and the batteries were dead. Wilkins would now face the humiliation of having his sub towed the rest of the way.
Yeah. Wilkins, man, I know you're dead. Obviously, probably. It's not even your fault, man. Some of it might be your fault, but I was gonna say the sub's overall condition, like, it should be able to make it across the Atlantic and not break down.
Across the Atlantic. Worse still,
But you're fucking lucky as hell that they found you out there this time.
4 crew members quit, and the Nautilus once again needed major repairs. They would take weeks for replacement parts to arrive from the United States. It meant there was no longer enough time to catch up with the Graf Zeppelin, and in
Damn, no reward. No reward.
a stunning blow, Wilkins could no longer claim Hearst's prize money. The media also turned against him, running headlines that openly mocked his expedition. Wilkins was under mounting pressure. His submarine didn't.
That's kind of unfair. Of course it's awful. Your sub broke down in the middle of a fucking ocean and you're have people standing in their own shit.
Work. His crew was demoralized, and winter was fast approaching. At this point, just about anyone else would have thrown in the towel. But this was.
After all these setbacks and during this time period, I've been like, well, this is obviously an act of God. It's obviously an act of God. Time to whoop, towel. There it is. I'm throwing
Sir
it.
Hubert Wilkins. Even months behind schedule, Wilkins pressed ahead. On July 28th, the expedition finally left for the North Pole. The Nautilus was
He was crazy, but awesome, but crazy.
still riddled with problems, but the crew had gotten used to making repairs on the go, and any major issues were fixed during scheduled stops. By August 15th, the Nautilus had reached the last inhabited land before the Arctic, and Wilkins was finally sending out upbeat progress reports. And on the 19th, the Nautilus
Wow, they got into the thick of it, man. They got a routine going.
reached the first ice floes. To celebrate, the men were given a break from the cramped conditions and began collecting scientific data. Back home, Hearst relayed fascinating new discoveries, like a warmer layer of water deep below the surface, thought to be vital for predicting weather. After traveling
I didn't realize he discovered that.
week in the ice, the Nautilus reached 82 degrees north, further than any vessel had ever made it under its own power. It looked like Wilkins would actually do it. He would travel 1,000 kilometers under the ice. But as the world read about Wilkins' achievements, on board the Nautilus things were not as they seemed.
Damn. I was getting goose pimples, right? I was like, can you imagine? Like, this would have been crazy to read about every day. They're sending radio updates or however they're doing it, and the world's getting these messages in live time, like, oh, he got to a stop. He's traveled further than anyone else. They're at the the Atlantic. And it's amazing what they did with what they had. But I have a feeling it's gonna be sad.
Wilkins had once again nearly put on a brave face. In reality, the crew were exhausted and freezing. The Nautilus had no heat or insulation. Nothing but bare metal separated them from the frigid Arctic waters. The crew were constantly sickened with food poisoning and dosed with lead from the soldering in the submarine's pipes. Attempting the pole this late in the season would be extremely dangerous, and without exception, everyone wanted to turn around and head home. Everyone except Wilkins. On August 27th, he gave the order to dive beneath the ice, but the Nautilus refused. The diving rudder, the mechanism that controls vertical motion underwater, just wouldn't respond.
I was expecting a mutiny.
Wilkins sent a diver to investigate, and he soon returned with a stunning discovery. The rudder had simply disappeared. Maybe it had fallen off and somehow no one noticed. Or maybe, as Wilkins suspected, the crew had sabotaged the sub in an attempt to end the expedition.
He looks like such a happy man.
By this point, even Hearst was publicly urging Wilkins to return home. But again, things weren't what they seemed. In a private message, the Hearst Corporation pressured Wilkins to continue to the pole, reminding him of their agreement. And
Wow. That's scummy. That's scummy. It's good to see that corporations haven't changed in, 100 years. Good job, guys.
that left Wilkins with an impossible decision: return home to certain failure and financial ruin, or press on and risk the lives of the crew.
I wish that people would always be like, hey, the lives are always more important. Don't you guys?
August 31st, Wilkins ordered the ballast tanks flooded and trim set 2 degrees down. He would force the Nautilus to submerge by ramming it under the ice.
Wow, that couldn't have been good. How are they going to get back up?
The sound of the sledge runner scraping against the ice reverberated right through the superstructure, as if the Nautilus was being torn apart. It's as though Wilkins had lost his mind. He couldn't possibly reach the pole in the crippled sub. But faced with an endless string of setbacks, Wilkins seemed determined to prove a point. They pushed on for several kilometers before Wilkins ordered a test of the ice drills. For hours, the crew tried in vain to bore through just a few feet of ice.
Damn, dude. They have it videotaped too, so that means they recovered this at some point, even if it was like a accident thing. I'm just mumbling over here like, it's suspenseful, okay? The music's getting to me. It's suspenseful.
Each time,
And I get a little bit like claustrophobic-y when I see underwater stuff.
Simon Lake's patented drill would only go so far before jamming. It was hopeless. On September 6th, Wilkins finally sent out the radio transmission that, by now, everyone was hoping for.
Our Arctic trip is over.
I mean, hey man, you tried your best, dude.
Wilkins had taken the Nautilus where no submarine had ever gone before. But it would be another 3 decades before anyone successfully traversed the Arctic underneath the ice. Sharing the
I expected them all to die or that guy to get killed. I ain't gonna lie.
same name, the nuclear-powered USS Nautilus could stay submerged for weeks at a time. It made its first polar crossing in 1958, returning home to huge fanfare. By that point, Wilkins's attempt had long been forgotten. The original Nautilus now lies sunk on the ocean floor off the coast of Norway. After the crew returned from the Arctic, the sub was deemed too worn and damaged to be worth saving, and it was deliberately sunk. Prior to the
It was probably that before, you know, with how many times it was breaking on him.
Nautilus expedition, Wilkins was considered amongst the greatest explorers of the 20th century, having made immense contributions to our understanding of the North and South Poles. But his final expedition left him financially ruined and largely forgotten by history. After passing away,
You know, he didn't deserve all that, but, you know,
at the age of 70, Wilkins's final wishes were fulfilled when the crew of the USS Gate scattered his ashes at the North Pole.
that's good. You know, that's like a feel-good respect thing. Kind of choked me up a little bit. I was like,
In the dying days of the USSR, the Soviets began working on a mysterious project straight out of science fiction. They're preparing to launch the first in a series of artificial suns, massive orbital satellites with the power to turn night into day, illuminating large areas of the planet.
what? That's so fucking cool. And crazy, but cool.
To generate power, light up entire cities, and grow plants in the far north.
They will transform perpetual night into daylight.
There could eventually be a whole network of these cosmic spotlights.
So you're talking about something which is several miles across.
It's the last vestige of the old Soviet dream of industrializing space.
This is the little-known story of one of the most bizarre and fascinating space projects in history, and you can learn more about it in my feature coming next month to Nebula. Nebula is where you can watch hours of exclusive mustard.
Okay. All right. I was fucking cool. So this channel is called Mustard. And oh wait, hold up. And I'll have the link below. My God. I hope you guys found that as interesting as I did.